I'm Carl Duivenvoorden. I was raised on a dairy farm on the north shore of New Brunswick. I'm a member of class of 1983, a diploma in farming technology, and a class of 1986, BSc with major in plant science. Being raised on a dairy farm, I guess agriculture was in my blood. So as I was a boy growing up, I always thought I'd follow the family tradition and farm. And after a few years, I rethought my career direction, so I went back a second time to AC for my degree, and that started a career on another side of agriculture that wasn't right on the farm. After I graduated from AC in 1986, my first job was with the New Brunswick Department of Agriculture, working in field crops, and it was a great start to a career. And then not long after that, I got what I still rank as the most impactful job of my career, and that was working for 5 years with the Canadian Seed Potato Export Agency, promoting Canadian seed potatoes in my territory, which was everything south of the United States. So I spent 5 years getting the blinders from the young guy from the North Shore off, and all of a sudden seeing parts of the world that many of us never get to see. And it totally changed my paradigms about so many things, about food, about agriculture, about the environment as well. I guess I was always concerned about the environment. When I was a kid, my school was located right between two factories, and I'd wonder, where does that smoke go? And the answer always seemed to be, well, it goes away. And that didn't work for me. And I think that concern for the environment was amplified by my experiences when I was traveling overseas. And over time, my biggest concern became climate change. When I learned about it, I thought, wow, that's the big umbrella that affects everything that we do. And a little voice inside me said, do something. But I had no idea what to do. In 1999, my oldest son was born. A little voice got louder. Do something. 2001, my second son was born. Do something, and I still had no idea what to do. Well, in 2007, by then I was starting to transition my career, I guess, because I was working at Efficiency New Brunswick. And one day I learned about this new book that was written called An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore. And I read it, and I remember telling my wife, Karen, I think this book is going to change the world because it's written by a famous person and it takes this complicated issue of climate change and makes it understandable. And then I found out that Al Gore would be training people to present live versions of his Academy Award-winning slideshow, and I thought, that's for me. That's where the little voice can become the bigger voice. So I applied and persisted and found myself down in Nashville in April 2007 with a small group of people being trained by Al Gore. And I came home with his slideshow, took a year off of work to present presentations to as many audiences as would have me. And after my year's leave of absence was up, I decided, I think this is the most important work that I could ever be doing. So that's when I quit my job and started to do this type of work full-time. I think the most challenging part of environmental work these days is misinformation. There is just such a prevalence of misinformation, and it's fed by the internet and social media, where anything can be posted without any sort of verification. It's interesting that on this journey, since I've transitioned into working full-time in the environment, I've found so many of my paradigms challenged. That's tough. Because sometimes that means something that you believed was true before needs to be reassessed, and you come to think, maybe that isn't so after all. And I get that change is difficult. Well, I've had to change a lot of my paradigms. I guess for starters, we hear about the 3 R's. The most important is the first, reduce. So in our own lives here at home, we've strived to reduce in every way possible. It's the starting point. Back in 2019, I set a goal for our family that we would strive to generate no more than 10 bags of trash the entire year, and that by the end of 2022 we would be net zero for our electricity and for our transportation. I'm glad to say we were successful with that trash goal, and we've been successful every year since. And we've installed 2 solar arrays which now provide all of the electricity we need for our home and for our EV. We often hear of targets of 2050 or 2040 or 2035 or 2030. And I'm thinking to myself, I hope this shows us maybe individually, or maybe on a larger level. We don't have to wait that long. An awful lot of the solutions we need are here right now if we simply embrace them. The first Terry Fox run happened while I was at AC. I took part, and I've taken part in most Terry Fox runs since. During the pandemic, when the runs were put on hold, I decided instead, maybe I'll do a beach cleanup and still raise money for the Terry Fox Foundation. Well, I did it in 2020, the first year, and it went so well, I did it again and again. And last year was the best year yet in terms of trash collected, a huge amount of trash. We had a team of 12 people. I had my best sponsorship yet, all for the Terry Fox Foundation. And the cherry on the cake was that we were joined by Terry Fox's brother, Fred, in doing the cleanup. It was awesome. I learned a lot about co-ops when I was at AC, and we've been a member here of the Fredericton Co-op now for a couple of decades, but I've been on the board of the Fredericton Co-op since 2015, and it's been a great learning experience, and I think my favorite accomplishment is leading the Energy Committee, because we've done some upgrades and we're saving a ton of energy and money and reducing our emissions at the co-op now too. What drives me on is I really want to be able to say at the end of this wonderful journey called life that I did the best I could when it came to preserving our environment and fighting climate change. That drives me on. Oh, I so enjoyed my time at AC. It was just a wonderful, it's physically a beautiful campus, wonderful facilities, awesome people, and the small size of the campus meant that you could get to know everybody. It was excellent. When I left home for NSAC in 1980, I got some of the best advice I've ever gotten in my life. It came from my dear mom. And Mom said, "Carl, maybe you can't change the whole world, but you can change your little corner of it." It stuck with me, and it's still my mantra to this day. I think that's possible for any of us. Maybe we can't change the whole world, but any of us can change our little corner of the world, and if we're lucky, really lucky, maybe someone takes notice and we change a little bit more than just our corner.